Yeah, we're live. Just doing a little spring cleaning there. Tonight we are going to talk about, first of all, we'll start off with the video that I put up tonight, or today, actually earlier. If you like big blocks and boost, and I mean, really, who doesn't? This video is for you. I ran a 454, basically a junkyard 454 with a cam upgrade and springs, and we replaced the EFI with an intake manifold. And I know that we're going to get cries out from the EFI guys. You should just run it with the EFI. Yeah, we could do that too, and it would do the same thing. The EFI makes about as much power as the dual plane does, makes a little bit more down low, not as much on top. We probably could port it or change the runner length or do something and make it do that, but it would still do that. It would, if we added boost to it with a cam, it would still do that. So we ran that junkyard motor with a Vortec on it and really spun the heck out of the blower, made 19 pounds of boost. We had an intercooler, all that was good, blowing through the carburetor. And yes, I still do like intercoolers blowing through the carburetor. And yes, it did make more power with the intercooler and blowing through the carburetor. We did not run E85 on that because the carburetor that I have from CSU was a, it's not E85, it's a regular gas carburetor. So we ran race gas because we're running lots of boost. And then we added the intercooler, and it definitely added power. So even on blow-through applications, it will make more power. So if a guy tells you, oh, blow-through, you don't need that, you can argue with him about the weight versus the power gain. That's a real argument. The fact that it doesn't make power is not an argument. An intercooler does add power on that application. So we got that one. And then we also had a dedicated 496 buildup. It was even a low compression deal, had good airflow research heads on it, which when you put good heads on something, you're miles ahead already. It was a bigger motor. It had better cylinder heads than those airflow research heads. It had the bigger camshaft. It had that comp BR300 that I run on lots of stuff. And then we ran it. It was kind of cool because that test was really cool. I ran a single plane and a dual plane and then a tunnel ram, and it shows you the successive steps up in power that you get and the change in the curve they get from the different intake manifolds. So in addition to being, blowing big blocks, which is already good, there's lots of like little information in there. So there's intercooler information, there's tunnel ram information. So that's really, it's all good information. I kind of wish that I would have run the boost, combined that with the tunnel ram, because we would have been a lot better off. Although the blower, we were way over 900 horsepower, and it would have been harder, I think, blowing through the carburetor. It'd have been a better deal if that YN tunnel ram would have been configured, and we could easily do that, would have been configured for EFI. And then we would run it as the EFI motor. Personally, I would have put the injectors up high, so we would have got the charge cooling, which is also good. We didn't on that one run an intercooler because this was way back when we ran the Vortec. We ran it in a carb enclosure, so I didn't run an intercooler to that. Not that we couldn't. It's just that it was configured the way that Vortec had sent their kit. So we ran it that way, no intercooler. And again, we're not trying to, these are run in years and years apart. I was just comparing them on paper. But so we ran the blower deal and it worked well, as they always do. You get a good naturally aspirated motor and you start adding boost to it and voila, magic stuff happens and it works out really good. Better stuff, obviously, with the intercooler. We weren't spinning the blower at the absolute limit of the blower either. Oddly enough, the junkyard version had a cog drive, so we eliminated any sort of possibility of belt slippage. But the other one had like a 10 rib on it, I think, which seemed pretty good. Now we ran the 496 at more engine speed. We ran that up to 6,500. The junkyard motor we ran to 6,000. It was still, pulling as it will with a centrifugal blower, because when it was naturally aspirated, it made peak power about 5,400 or something. I'm going to take a look at that and just verify that really quick, because I'm curious now that I think about it. I want to know how much I raised the peak power output, where it made peak power. So in stock trim, we made 426.9 at 5,500. And then we ran the blower. We were showing 791 non-intercooled at 6,000. So that's 500, but we're still climbing. So it would be higher than that. Yeah, and the same thing with the intercooler, 848 at 6,000, and it's still climbing 8 to 10 horsepower per 100 RPM. So it's still soaring pretty good. So running the centrifugal blower with a rising boost curve is going to shift the power curve. Even though we had a 5,500 RPM motor, when you artificially increase the airflow to the motor, good things happen, and you'll make power at a higher engine speed. And then the higher the engine speed that you run, the more boost the blower produces, and it all compounds on itself, which works out really good. So that's a good video. And the thing is, as I try to do with most of the videos, even though we ran those tests on 2 big blocks, which again, lots of information, junkyard motor, dedicated motor, intercooler, tunnel ram, single plane, dual plane, blower, all of that stuff, all of that applies to almost every other motor that you would test. So if we did this intercooler upgrade on a modular Ford 2-valve or on a Honda Civic motor, a K series or a B series or a D series, whatever, it all does the same thing. It all works. So if we run a small motor and then run boost on, and then run a big motor, the big motor, if you spin the blower the same theoretically. Now what happens with the turbo stuff is that because the turbo is controlled, basically limited as it were by boost, the turbo will just spin up faster and make the same boost. So it won't lower the boost the way it does with a blower when you put it on a bigger motor. It will make the same boost, and then it'll just make even more power. So which is, that's never a bad thing. Because if you, instead of running, 6.5 or 7 pounds on the 496, if that thing was 10 or 12, it'd be, it'd be way into the 4-digit power output. So it worked out really good. Tim, what's up? Tonight, what I want to talk about tonight, and the thumbnail that's up is a Super Richie. I think that was a 2-valve Ford intake manifold. So it's my adjustable aluminum versions, so that we can, and on this one you'll see I have basically adjustable crossovers between the 2 common plenum, because it's a dual plenum and then adjustable runner, and then also the connection between the 2 also has to be adjustable, because since that's in a V configuration, it's not straight up and down. Straight up and down makes life a lot easier, because then I don't ever have to adjust the back. But when I put it in a V configuration, I had to keep adjusting the length of the back section, because as you change the runner length, obviously they get, as you shorten them, they get closer and closer together. So I learned that lesson after doing that one, and thought, I'm just going to make them straight. What we're doing for the turn is not as critical as what I'm doing for the change in runner length. And if I do that, I don't have to keep adjusting the connection between the thing. Although the connection is another thing that you can do, and that changes plenum volume. And then I put a butterfly in the middle and change that so we can divide them and undivide them. And so it's a lot of cool stuff. But where this really helps, and it helped on the 2-valve, because the 2-valve didn't have a lot of really good, when I was testing this stuff, didn't have a lot of really good intake manifolds. We had a Reichardt Racing deal back then, which was a short runner deal, and it does what short runner manifolds do. It loses power through a lot of the curve and could pick up at the top. And guys back then, you say, oh, it's a good blower manifold. No, it's not a good boost manifold. It's just a manifold. It's this RPM range because it has this kind of runner length. This is what it does. It doesn't do anything different under boost. It just keeps doing that. We had the P51 back then. We had the PI manifold. We didn't have any of the Edelbrock carbureted ones back then. And I wish that I would have tested them. Bobby, what's going on? Thank you very much. I'll put that toward my trophy 4-cylinder expenses, because and that's what we'll get into next. And the reason I'm segueing from the transitioning from that intake manifold design into our trophy 4-cylinder. So I did it for the modular Ford because there wasn't a lot of stuff available for it. So I wanted to make my own and see if I could make something that was better. I did it for the 2-valve. I did it for the 3-valve. I did it for the 4-valve. I did it for the early 4-valve, the B-headed motor. And so I made a bunch of those. And then, we did them for LSs, and I did them way back for 5-liter Mustangs, and, all kinds of stuff. And I have one for the Atlas, which I hope to be testing sometime after I get that together. I kind of like to do one for the Slant 6, but mostly I definitely probably will have to do one for the trophy 4-cylinder, the little 4-cylinder half of a 389 Pontiac that I have. Now Dave has picked that up, and he's gotten it from the place that I bought it from and bringing it back to his shop, and then we're going to ship it out to West Tech. And I think that it's a runner. I have lots of ideas for different kind of intake manifolds, because they came with, you know, your typical kind of, if you look at any inline 6-cylinder, like a Chevy or something, or the Fords, the ones that were carbureted before they went fuel injected, it's basically just a, you know, a log style manifold with a carburetor mounted in the middle of it. And then they also had a 4-barrel version. So the highest horsepower version of that had a manifold that was a little bit wider and probably a little bit better flowing and not so much loggish, let's say. And that one made more power. I'd like to get a hold of one of those if I can. I don't know. I've searched around a little bit to find out if there's one for sale. Probably not a lot of those for sale. I might find one from somebody that has one that isn't using it that I might be able to borrow, even if that's the case. So what I'm thinking of is I'm going to try some V8 manifolds on them, because I know that will work. So we'll try a couple of cool things like that. But I'm also going to make my own manifold with a removable lid that I can configure with a variety of different carbureted and or EFI kind of combination. So it'll be kind of cool to be able to test that and test the effect of all of that. Obviously we'll need, you know, and all of this can be done. It would eventually at some point need a ported head, and it would definitely going to need some kind of camshaft and so all of that to take advantage of what we have. But we'll start off with all of the fairly easy, you know, bolt-on things, and obviously headers. Some things on these are going to be a lot easier than others. Ultimately, I'd like to make a fuel injection manifold for it and have it, you know, a front throttle body, kind of a traditional deal for the 4-cylinder stuff. And then that way it can be port injected. We can ensure if we run boost on it that we have equal fuel distribution on all the runners, because TorqueStorm has already said that they would supply the blower kit, so that I already have their blower. In fact, I have 2 of them. I already have the blower, so they just need the mounting brackets to be able to run the blower on the Pontiac. And I could run it. The cool thing is I could run it on other stuff too, the 350, the 400, whatever we want, but it would also go on this Trophy 4. So we would need to have a decent intake manifold for that. And also, you know, when ultimately it gets a turbo, because the cool thing about this thing that will lend itself to that is it's a crossflow head, unlike some of the stuff that I'm working with. It's a crossflow head, and the exhaust is on the other side, so it just lends itself to, you know, putting a turbo over there. It shows very well, and then we could run a front-mounted cooler or wherever, even one on the top. Especially if we run an air-to-water, that would make everything, you know, fairly simple. But that's my plan. So that's I'm excited about getting that. I need to talk to Dave and find out what the schedule is to get that out here, to get it shipped to West Tech, and then hopefully as soon as it gets here, I can get it up on the dyno, because it just uses a BOP bell housing. We don't have to worry about a starter. We already have a starter on the dyno. We can put we have a flywheel for it, and motor mounts are easy, just L brackets or whatever. So all that's fairly simple. So that would be something, because we've already run a Pontiac, and it has some of the things that we would use anyway, and we just put them on there, and that would work. And so it'd be cool to run something different and unique. And I got my fingers crossed that the 2G, or that the 1G, I guess, I don't know, whatever carburetor that is, that the 1-barrel carburetor will work fine. And then I'm anxious to try new stuff. Also, when I go down, I'm going to do some stuff on the Ford, the 5-liter, more of the cam testing. I might try. Somebody has been contacting me about doing a ported version of the GT40 stuff or the Cobra stuff, which is cool, because I haven't run one of those for. I'm sure it's been more than a decade, probably maybe more like 2. We did a lot of ported stuff back in the day, and so I kind of have a feel for what they do. But I'm open to testing all kinds of stuff, so I'd like to try that and see how people want to kind of see how that compares to the carbureted stuff, because there's such a disparity between the standard GT40, because it's really long runner and wants to make power at a lower engine speed than the dual plane does. So we want to see about maybe having that done and testing that. That would be also cool. Once we get the cams out of the way, I have another video coming up next day or so on fuel cooling that I did. So we did, we did a ice bucket with an oil cooler running all the fuel through it, and we dropped the fuel temperature dramatically on the fuel injected motor. So that was kind of cool. So that will be another test coming up. Got some cylinder head stuff coming up. Now I have a whole list of to-do things. I'm working on the Hitachi carburetor, cleaning it up, and then I've got to make a radius air horn going into it, and then an adapter to go from the Hitachi to the carburetor, or to the turbo, and then a radius entry going into the carburetor, so that we can get that and try to get some adjustability out of that, so that we can get some, if I have to adjust the fuel, we need to be able to get more fuel or less fuel. I don't want to just adjust that with boost. I don't want to have to go down to 3 pounds or 1 pound or whatever it is that will make it work. I'd rather be able to adjust the carburetor. And if worse comes to worse, I have an elbow that we'll put on that will mount a 2-barrel or a 4-barrel carburetor, and that probably would cure it, I would think, but we'll have to see. So that's what's going on in my world. Let's see what you guys are doing. That adjustable manifold that I have the thumbnail up on for worked very well, and being able to change the power curve was always cool. What I need to find out what I just haven't done it yet. I know that it's available. I need to find out what the intake spacing is, and so that I can get the manifold made. I think that if I remember right, the Pontiac stuff is paired like a Chevrolet, so nothing I have is probably going to fit that. But it might be that I can cut one off and move it over or do something, and so I can repurpose something that I already have rather than have to make a completely new thing. So that'll be good. Okay, so what do you guys got going on? Jose, you just flew in from California. Nice. You guys to do a micro squirt setup and post the settings on a inline 4-cylinder. Rammer 5 head on a trophy, some big block Chevy rods, make it spin to 8,000. It's gonna take some kind of crank to do that. $200 horsepower bikes, yeah, that's a lot. I built a 70s style dirt bike using 07 GT200R engine. Oh, we're going down the bike path. Did you get it? Bike path. Trophy 4 versus a Dodge 2.5. Who will make more torque? The Dodge 2.5 turbo motor, is that what you're talking about? Because the NA version of the 2.5 isn't going to be very stellar, I don't think. The Trophy would have a big advantage over the Dodge turbo, non-turbo 2.5, like 8-valve motor, because it just doesn't have any cylinder head on it. The Trophy 4 at least has some head flow. And an awful lot more aftermarket support in the head flow division. CMR, you've been binge watching Engine Masters. Kawasaki Eliminator. Yeah, that was the Cruiser Ninja version. Same motor, right? The 900 Ninja. V65 Magna. Yep, that was good. Richard, how many inches on your homemade manifold? Runner length 3 inches less than a GM TPI. Which one are you talking about? You're talking about the one that's in the video? It was adjustable up to about, I think on the 2-valve. I don't think we went to 20 inches on the 2-valve. I think it was less than that. L76 with VVT, would it work? It works. Are you saying it works good with boost, or are you asking if it works good with boost? Yeah, the Eliminator was the drive shaft version, but with an engine motor. All of the LS motors work good with boost. Richard, how much of a factor is exhaust scavenging with both NA and boost when adjusting intake manifolds? Well, I don't adjust both things at one time. I only adjust one. So when we adjust runner length, we just adjust intake runner length. I don't adjust exhaust also to try to optimize it for that runner length. I've been plotting a PT Cruiser. Excuse me. PT Cruiser Sebring head on 2.5 and some flat top pistons. I think 400 foot-pounds on a motor could be possible with boost. 400 foot-pounds would certainly be possible. You're asking if VVT and boost go good together. They can. Anything that adds power anywhere in the curve, and VVT does add low speed power, tends to, and so that would help with boost response. It's just you need to stop thinking about it as something different. Think about what that combination does NA, and then boost just adds on top of that. Getaway, you're getting tired of the 4 carbs? Just house them all in a box and put boost. CMR, I don't really have a favorite muffler because we don't run a lot of different mufflers on the dyno. The ones that we have for dyno operation, the ones that I use a lot are the not Dynamax. It's a company that's here in California. Not Walker. Somebody give me the names of some of the muffler companies. I wish you'd get back into Hemis. I'm still into Hemis. Truck 345, put down some solid numbers, but the 392 is what we all want to see. Not Walker, not Flowmax, not Dynamax, not Thrush. Who did Mario Andretti was the spokesperson for? Borla is one, but he's not. Magnaflow, that's who it was. I have their mufflers on stuff on the for dyno, and it's all welded together so that, and they're on V-band, so I could just V-band everything together, because for years and years we did like the slip fits nonsense, and then you'd slip fit it, and then it would shoot off during a test, and you have to redo it and put it on there, and then you'd drill holes and put screws in it, and then they would break, and it just was. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. We're going to put V-bands on these, and then once we put them on, they'll never come off, and they're easy to put on. You don't have to mess around with the 3-bolt flanges and blowing gaskets out and all that. It's so much easier. BMW runs variable length intake runners based on RPM. Yeah, that's how you'd want to vary it. The poll says Flowmaster. No purple. Thrush Eco cans. How about some cherry bombs? sheet metal band style clamps. I don't like those either. We've tried those and they loosen up and things still wants to slip off. With the V-band, it will never come off. Super traps, I had super traps on my Mustang. I ran for a long time. Vance, you have a 4.5 horsepower Tecumseh engine on your mini bike. That's pretty cool. It obviously needs boost, but it's very cool. Or a little nitro shot. Can you make a 1 or 2 horsepower nitro shot? Spin Tech, we've tried those at West Tech also. Put boom tubes on it. Yep. Oh, that's good. I do like running mufflers on stuff anymore because it's just way too annoying to have to hear that all the time. Sheet metal bands might work better in the car if it's secured on both ends and it doesn't have a lot of growth room. But if we have headers and then collector extensions or mufflers that are hanging off of it without any other attachment on it, it just wants to shoot off. Yeah, Vance, I just don't know how you could get the flow orifice down that small. That's always a problem, is that if you get the flow orifice that small on the nitrous, it freezes up and then it won't flow. Uric acid to eat your stock muffler for stock racing classes. So it's a stock muffler outside then externally. The stock torque converter. What did you want to talk about on torque converters? They're a good idea. It's very important to have one if you have an automatic transmission. So we need to have a poll for tonight. Will the Pontiac Trophy 4-cylinder make more power in stock trim than the NA L28? Okay, this is going to be all over the board. Will the Pontiac Trophy 4-cylinder make more power in stock trim than the NA L28 Datsun 6-cylinder? Let's see what people have to say about that. Grooves, the poll answers already know no matter what it is. Do we always have to spell it out? What stall torque converter do you want for what? For what's the application? So you got to spell that out too. So if you want a torque converter and you want it for your application, we need to know what your application is. We need to know what your power output is. We need to know what your intention is. Otherwise, we're just going to throw out a number and it's just going to be a guess. The Trophy is 194-ish cubic inches. Let's see, 194 divided by so that's over 3 liters. Yeah, 100 and yeah, that's more than 3 liters. So it's bigger. It's bigger than the Nissan is. Yeah, it's 3 point something, right? 6.1, 3.1, 3.18, almost 3.2 liters. Yeah, it's a 389 cut in half. So it's 194.5, I guess. Richard, have you ever heard of N-Tech Racing Services out of Toronto, Canada? I have not. Yeah, Don, I do 6.1 when I divide it. $6.102. So make sure to get out there and vote. Will the Pontiac Trophy 4-cylinder make more power and stock trim than an NA L28 Datsun? Take a look at the rated power outputs. Only the high output version of the Trophy 4 would be comparable to what the L28 makes. Because the other ones are rated at 110, 120, 130, depending 140, depending on whether they were premium fuel, automatic, or manual. .8 liters is 1 U.S. gallon. Yeah, it is a big 4-cylinder, which is why it's vibration prone. Do I need to go to a turbo 3 head? Captain, that's going to be a hard one to find, right? So a 16 valve swap, a 2.5, or a PT Cruiser head. A PT Cruiser head will bolt up. It won't bolt right up. It's some work. You'd actually be better off just getting the PT Cruiser motor, just getting a 4-valve motor and putting it in there. Butcher, you took your balance shaft out? I like the balance shaft in the 4.3 liter V6 that I ran. Like to test the 2.9 Atlas, that's a 4-cylinder version, right? Because the other one's a 3.7, 3700 or something. Get a Holly Skyrim intake. I think they gave that one away. I think they gave it to some lucky winner. Neon SRT4, PT Turbo, the same engine with a different intake manifold. That would be the one to swap in there rather than trying to convert your 8-valve into a 16-valve. I know guys have done it. I just think it's more work than they originally think. A lot of times people think because hey, look, it lines up. Great, that's the start of things. There's more things after that. Cameron, love the big block Chevy vids. Do you have any dyno results for a blown big block with a tunnel ram? I don't have them because I don't ever remember running one like that. I wanted to in looking back, but blowing through 2 carburetors would have been problematic. David Freiberger ran a big 871 roots blower on top of a tunnel ram, and it did exactly what it did NA. He compared it to the very short runner, even shorter than the single plane manifold, so it'd be even worse than a Victor Jr. compared to the stock, not stock, but the intake manifold that they most normally run with a roots blower. It's a very, very short runner, just kind of a common plenum, a place for all the boost to go and get into the motor. And as you might imagine, having no runner length, it's terrible for power production. When you run the tunnel ram under the blower, you pick up a lot of power. Yeah, Charles, the Pontiac Tempest with the Trophy 4 had a really cool transaxle. It was actually arced. Yeah, dinosaur. You like that? My wife did that. International Harvester had a 196 cubic inch four-cylinder used in the early Scouts. The Chevrolet also had a four-cylinder in the Chevy too, right? I don't know how big it was though. Dodge literally made Honda say, "Holy crap!" and then the K series was born. I don't think that that's accurate. Only if you're comparing a turbo motor to an NA series. Yeah, they had a Chevy 2 four-cylinder, right? I'm sure that they did. Chevy 2 four-cylinder. It was 153 cubic inches, 3 7/8 inch bore, and a 3 1/4 inch stroke. Chevy 153. And they also had the inline six-cylinder, 194 cubic inch six-cylinder. So the Chevy 2 was a lot smaller than the Pontiac, and probably did not have heads that floated as well. Although I'm really curious to see what heads were used, and nobody has been able to answer my question. I don't know. All the people that I've talked to about the trophy four-cylinder, nobody could really answer the questions that I asked, and that was what cylinder head, like what casting number or whatever, what cylinder head is used on that motor, and is there a different cylinder head used on the higher horsepower versions, like the 110 horsepower version versus the 155 or the 166 horsepower version, depending on what year it is. These are all from 61 to 63, so these would all have been the earlier Pontiac heads. But I want to know which head they were, and if they changed them. So to change the combustion chamber to get more power, to get more compression, because they had a change in compression. And I want to know what head that is, and was it actually, a 61 or 62 or 63 389 head. When the Dodge Spirit RT came out, it made Honda notice it. Why would Honda be looking at a Dodge Spirit? I like the Dodge Spirit. I almost bought one. As a matter of fact, I called to get it, and he had just sold it before I got the Omni. I really wanted an Omni though, but the Spirit would have been cool. Fastest sedan in whatever year that was. The Chevy 2 is not an Iron Duke. This was pre-Iron Duke stuff. Are there any tuning benefits for increasing displacement in bore versus stroke? I don't know what you mean by tuning. Most people tend to like bore better because the secondary benefit you get, in addition to it being bigger and making more power and increasing the static compression, is that you can also improve head flow that way. So if you go bigger on the bore and you can unshroud the valves and or put bigger valves in, you can get more airflow from the head, and that can be secondarily beneficial. Would a 350 poncho head bump compression at all? I don't know, because I don't know what head is on that motor. That year was the fastest four-cylinder on planet Earth. It wasn't the fastest one on Earth. It was the fastest one in the United States, because BMW had a car that was faster, a sedan that was faster. But it was the fastest one in the U.S. and maybe in North America also. We can say that. Cameron, Richard, you have so many videos. I think that there's 1,000 up there now. Oh, it take hours to check. It doesn't take hours to check. Just go to the playlist. you go through 90% of them. So you go to the playlist, you're looking for big block Chevy, go to big block Chevy, go to NA big block Chevy, and then all you have to do is look through those. But the answer is yes, I have oval port head tests of 049 stuff. I did a test where we tested a bunch of oval port heads, and 049s were in there, but I think that they were ported. Dan, it was not the fastest production car. It was the fastest production sedan in the United States. And it was 140 plus miles an hour. A rear-wheel drive, open course car with a turbo K24 would be a build. So like a S2000? In your experience, should you expect valves to leak when leak down testing immediately following a valve job before running at all? No, but have they been lapped in after the after cutting them? They should be sealed pretty well. It should be a really nice mating surface between the two. Have you thought about selling your dyno test files? Why would somebody want dyno files? Dan, the Aerotech, that was not a production sedan. Full tube chassis, like a factory 5 car. That would be fast. Yeah, like I said, I'm a big fan. I like that. I like that spirit. I kind of wish I would have had that one, because the reason that was desirable to me, one, fastest production car in the United States, but more so because we're at 65% saying yes and 35% saying no on the trophy 4-cylinder. But more because it was a running car. I could get in and drive it. I mean, you might have to charge the battery or change a belt or whatever, but it was not something that I had to do a motor swap on, which ends up taking forever. So it was a running, driving car that I then could modify and do stuff, on the chassis dyno. SpinTech wants my dyno files. Honda spun counterclockwise until the Dodge. You're still with the Dodge thing. So you think that Honda looked at a Dodge and said that we're going to change the direction of our engines? I don't think that that's a real thing. I think that you won't find the Honda engineers are really, really sharp. Why don't you do a budget Offie Indy build? That would be good. Sure. I'm sure those are a few $100s, right? I would be here raising money all the time. Yeah, grooves. If you pour liquid in them and it leaks out, they're not sealing. And we and by we I mean when I go over see John Mahovitz, he has a vacuum tester to see how much vacuum it'll pull. And if they're leaking, I don't think that they should be. The International Harvester 4-cylinder is a Slant 4.2. I don't think I've ever seen one of those. K24 Opal and Monza. See, both of those would be cool, especially the Opal. An Opal GT would be very cool. Yeah, when I get junkyard LS motors and they're all disgusting the way that they are, and I take the heads apart, and just by doing my drill, it's the Super Richie razor blade rebuild, just by doing the drill and lapping compound, once I do that, even though the exhaust valves are almost always pitted, I still get a good surface, and it won't leak. Is it feasible to bore a K24 or or K20. I don't know how far they go on them. I think that they probably sleeve them before they do that. Richard, you recommend a blow-off valve between an intercooler and an intake. Yeah, you should have a blow-off valve in your turbo system. And the closer it is to the closed throttle body, the sooner that it will eliminate the surge. Butcher, I have a 1990 Spirit, but I have a common block 2.5. That's a good one. Quite a few mods. It's a great car. So that thing should be like really fast and really torquey. An Opel Manta, I like those as well. What year is that IHC 4-cylinder? Is it? Did they see what Pontiac did and said, "Hey, we need some we need some of that cut in half action"? Wyan, Vortec, or Edelbrock for a supercharger? You got to give me more information. You got to tell me what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve. Val, so you did the Super Richie drill thing. It does work, and especially, and the reason that I do stuff like that, like I didn't do that on the V series that I put together to go to Bonneville. But when I get a motor from a wrecking yard, especially some of these are just terrible. It's amazing that they run. And if I do that on a motor like that, I'm not going to hurt it. I'm not going to make it any worse. I can only make it better. Even if I make it 1% better, it's still better. And I'm not going to make it leak more than it does, because that's not going to happen. So it's, it's a setup to make it kind of junkyard better. Wow, you guys really work the cars. We do. Oh, Don, they did it about the same time that Pontiac did. You had a lot of, and I was talking to one of the engineers, and they said, you get all these guys that argue about, oh, the Ford is an LS, or the LS is a Ford, or Chevy Cleveland copied the big block or whatever. Here's what happens is you get a lot of engineers going back and forth between these companies. They work for one, and then they quit, and they go work for another one, and guys hire them away, and there's all this stuff, and they work for these guys for a while, and then go work over with these guys, and that happens. And also, there's always going to be interchange of ideas. And also, if you're looking at a problem, there may be only a few different ways to solve that. And there's no reason to do it differently, especially if you look at a problem and there are 4 ways to solve it, and 2 of them are really bad. That leaves you with 2. Then you pick the best of those 2, and it's not surprising that it might be similar to what somebody else is doing. Any good combos for a 350 for a quarter mile? 68 Camaro first gen, new to the channel. Yeah, there should be videos up on. In fact, I go through a step-by-step thing on small block builds, and we go from 200 and I think 20 or 30 horsepower. We started out with a 2-barrel combination, and then we went all the way up to, I think it was over. I know it was over 400. It might be over 500. So this should give you a pretty good idea. It takes, if you're going to go drag racing with it, it takes a big camshaft, really good head flow, like an airflow research head or a trip flow head, a big camshaft, something that's 240, 250 at 50. And we try different intake manifolds. Dual plane is what I usually recommend, but on a drag race car that has gear and converter, or just gear and a stick, then a single plane might work up there, because you're going to be running this thing at 7,000 or 7,500 if you want to make a lot of power with a 350. Or you could make it bigger and make it a 383. TK in a B series engine, you usually recommend increasing the ring gap at boosting. How much do you normally file the rings? 6 to 6.5 thousandths per 1 inch of bore is what I normally do. amazing. Just amazing. On Alan Millard's YouTube channel, it takes 2 motorcycle engines and combines them into 1 engine. That is pretty cool. Yeah, Dan. Also, guys can come. The famous saying is that there are no new ideas. So and this has happened to me many times, and it's happened to other people that I know. They're like, "Oh yeah, I came up with the greatest idea," and they're like, "Well, I'm going to do this and this and this." I'm like, "Yeah, great. Here, watch. Look, it's right there." Guys did it back in the '60s. It really is a good idea, but it's not a new idea. It can be one of those, but not both of those. And that's what happens. There are lots of really, really sharp guys out there, and because there are so many people out there, coming up with something that's brand new and unique is harder and harder to do. You might come up with something that's brand new and unique in your area, but the crazy guys in Russia may have already done it by throwing rocks at it or whatever they're doing, because they do some really cool stuff over there. Scott, I haven't done any rotary tests on the engine dyno, only on the chassis dyno. Will Pontiac V8 cam still fit in the trophy? No, you can't do that. The firing order is different. Head development is likely more expensive than block development for the 4-cylinder. Well, it's interesting how much development they put into some of these 4-cylinder blocks, like the K series, and even the B series before that. Some of these things that are making, because obviously Honda said, we're going to make our stuff good, but they had no idea that you are going to triple or quadruple the power output of the factory rating. Jordan, happy to help. And your question about I don't know what transmission you have, but if you're going to be trying to drag race it, you're going to need a good transmission. And a rear end, depending on it. So all that stuff goes together. If you start making more power, all the other things become limiting. They tend to break if you put too much power to it. Mazda RX-3, yes, big fan. So did AMC or International Harvester have the 152 304 V8? Okay. Any turbo size recommendations for 383 LS? I've been running an S480 on the 376. That would be a good one to use. That's more than 1,000 horsepower turbo, and you can do that with a 383. Cash, thank you very much. Wish my shadow would even break them loose. If you have a turbo shadow, that should break them loose real easy. Butcher, the power's really strong down low, all the way to 5,000. Pretty much done then. Have you run it, Butcher? Have you run that thing on a chassis dyno? I can spin the tires in 4th gear. Well, then that's a win, right? That's the nice thing about the 2.5. It's got a lot of torque. It's the big block of 8-valve motors. Aaron, I didn't see your question before that, so I don't know. Trying to go back and look and see what you were asking, Aaron. On your magic load profile. Still not seeing it. And scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Going back pretty far. Aaron, you need to ask your question again. So I can't find it. I cannot find your question. Your lobe overlap calculator. Any work on a 2.3 liter EcoBoost? Only on the chassis dyno. Most people do tunes, exhaust. You can do a turbo, uh, turbo upgrade, intercooler upgrade, air intake, that kind of stuff. But I don't. That's most of that stuff is not stuff that we would run if we ran it on the dyno. Todd, what's going on, man? You did your fuel system? Good. Every day. I did a video today. It didn't work on any car stuff. Jim, I have not run the L28 yet. Went from a cathedral port head to mass square port small bore heads. The mass stuff is really good. Do you have an all-time favorite build? I want to do another sprint motor. I just want to run it on the dyno. Oh shit! That was a non-turbo 2.2. That's why it's going to be hard. You gotta get enough RPM and then drop the clutch. Or if it's an automatic, I don't know if you can even power brake it that much. Just throw some grease or something under the tires. It'll do it. Dan, a retired coworker, has half a Pontiac V8 Tempest engine with a cut and welded torquer intake. That's probably what I'm going to do. I think that I'm going to call Troy tomorrow. It was too late today. I'm going to have him take a look. I thought that in addition to the Performer intake that I saw that I dusted off, that I think that they have a torquer manifold too, and I purposely didn't want to use that on a stock one because I knew that that would not be good. But it will be good for the 4-cylinder because, and here's the other thing we can talk about for tonight, although we're almost done. Maybe we'll talk about this tomorrow. So here's what I want you guys to think about. If you know anything about a dual plane intake manifold design, you know how it feeds half on one side and half on the other. If you have, whether you have a 2-barrel or a 4-barrel, 2 of them feed one side and 2 of them feed the other. Well, on a 4-cylinder, we can't do that. So I can't just cap off one side because I won't have ports going to all of them. So I'm going to have to drill through or do something to make a dual plane work. It's not insurmountable. It's certainly possible that I could do that. A single plane cures that problem. And on a 4-cylinder, a single plane is not going to be as bad. I'm going to want to have a Super Richie to have more runner length, but a torquer with a 4-barrel on the inline 4-cylinder, on the trophy 4-cylinder, will be a cool test because all I have to do is make a plate to cap it off, and it will work just fine. Overbuilt, Richard. So the Trophy 4 is a coming cool project. Yeah, he just Dave went and picked it up today. He just sent me a text and said, "Hey, I got it in my truck. I'm on my way back to the shop." Richard, you should build a belly tanker. That would be nice. And what I would like is, and this would be hard, is a front-wheel drive belly tanker. Oh, Butcher, good. Did you? How much power did the thing make? I like those little turbo 4-cylinders. I wonder if the North Star will have a pulled head bolt right from the start. So really, you think that it just pulls head bolts just from driving around? Half of a Holly Street Dominator would probably work well in the Trophy. I would think. I have to take what I have, belly tanker and the turbo sprint. See, that'd be a perfect kind of motor for the but the turbo needs to stick up out of the concealment of the belly tanker. Just get super skinny tires. I'm going to get a gear reduction on one side, and so that we can really ramp it up. Aaron, I was reading about overlap and how it affects everything. What do they call that? The 3rd cycle or whatever, or the 5th cycle, I think. The little triangle of overlap. Aaron, what I would do is not worry about one aspect of the camshaft. What combination is it? Is it a 460? Is it bigger than that? Is it a stroker version? Does it have good heads? Is the 274 281 the number at 50? How much lift does this thing have? There's way more things that I would worry about than I would worry about the overlap. According to the very old Pontiac book, 120 parts, including the cylinder head, were taken from the 389. Must be counting parts like rod bolts, nuts, keeper springs. Yeah, and front cover, the oil filter, all of that stuff is, you know. You want to put a stack injection on a belly tank or sprint engine. But I want to blow through it with a turbo, though, because it's got to be turbocharged. Daniel, yeah, the 4-cylinder can be made to work with a V8 dual plane, but it's going to take some work. Richard, if you can find a Weber type manifold for the Trophy, you have 2 side drafts. That would be cool. I did see one that had the Hilborn stack injection on it, which is really cool, which is kind of what I'm doing with my manifold. It's just going to have a common plenum. Although I could do the Super Richie thing and run and get it to wide open throttle and then just take the plenum off like we do. An A10 30mm cannon for the belly tanker. That'd be good for traffic, right? Racer, you just send me emails, send me trophy pics. I was trying to get a hold of Dave. I need to I need a phone number for Dave. Super Dave. I was watching your engine video again, your Iron Duke. Any Pro Mod turbo size recommendations for 383 on methanol, the mass small bore heads? There's lots of big ones that you could put on there. I mean, how much do you want to make? Ben, Richard, really enjoyed your series on the Chevy 292 6-cylinder. I'm going to do more stuff with that. I'm going to put it back together. So, oh, we did get a number here. So I'm checking my email to see if I got pictures. So Racer D, why don't you guys just throw that up on the dyno really quick and let me know how it does. Dan, so you put a 212 Predator in a go-kart? That's cool. Fuel injection on the 292. That's going to be hard to do with Siamese ports like that. You'd almost have to have a divider go in, because we were looking at this before, a divider go into the head. I would kind of like to divide the manifold all the way through. That'd be a little bit of work, though. So we're going to close out our poll. Will the Pontiac Trophy 4 make more power and stock trim than the NA L28? 62% saying yes on the Pontiac bandwagon. I have my doubts about that. 94 or 98 millimeter. Go for 103. Tom, Pontiac for the win. We're kind of finding a turbo for a 212 Predator. The cranky ones go faster. How much boost do you think it'll take? Can't you just put could you put a 25 shot on that thing? That'd be crazy. Chili Bomb. I don't know. There's got to be something smaller than, don't they have Don't they have turbos for snowmobile engines or something? I'm thinking about the turbo for the Sprint, but the turbo for the Sprint is still like 130 or 40 horsepower. I mean, it's sized for the 70 horsepower under boost, but it's still going to be, a 45 horsepower or 50 horsepower NA motor. Butcher stock, I made 121, but a good intercooled GT80, GT28 springs, pistons, some headwork. An old ball computer, I'm making 260. Nice. So 260 at the tire is going to feel good. Would you recommend Schneider to regrind late North Star roller cams? Yeah, I'm going to go to them. And as a matter of fact, they did the cams for the 4200. I need to call them. Write myself a note here. Schneider cams. And then probably for the, I would imagine I'm going to have that done for the, or maybe the guys in Oregon, the guys that do the slant 6 cams too, maybe for the Pontiac. Racer D, are you Dave? For some reason I was thinking you were somewhere else. You were someone else. What do I need to do to a 70s 350 to shoot nitrous safely? You just need to retard the timing. It needs to be not detonating when it runs NA, and then you need to retard timing from there. And more octane would help. It's possible. I don't know what a heron head is. And I've never worked on an MEL, so I might be the wrong guy to answer that. I don't have a visual representation to rely on. Wave Runner turbos. I just don't know. You need something really small. What engine do you want to play with that I've not had a chance to? I'd like to run a rotary on the engine dyno. And I'm really excited about doing the draw-through turbo on the L series. What Pontiac are we talking about? Not a Super Duty 4-cylinder. We're talking about a trophy 4-cylinder, which is a 194.5 inches, which is half of a 389 from a 61 Pontiac Tempest, or 62 or 63. Probably use a trans cooler. Yeah, for a 212 Predator. Yep. The thing is, online there are intercoolers that you can buy for like $1.289. Rancher Lee, I've used small diesel turbos on Briggs before. They actually spool and build boost. Cool. What's the lowest horsepower you've gotten on the dyno? On a V8, it's been low 200s probably. On something that was running right. It's not something that was broke or damaged or down a couple of holes. RHB 31 turbo, 100 horsepower small. I think that the one on the Sprint is a RB 32. Smart car kit. 2 more minutes. Dos minutos más. 81 F-150 302 is rated 160 horsepower or less. But what they're rated at and what they make on the engine dyno, the way that we run them is different. I haven't run one of the really small V8s, like a 262. What did the no, even the 4.3 liter V8 made more power than that, I think. That's a good question. Now I want to look and see. I don't think that one was the lowest. I think that one actually did pretty good. Small block Chevy. $350. L99, baby LT1. Final stock. It made 243, 280 foot-pounds of torque. So it did pretty good. One of the 350s that I put on there with the 2-barrel and the stock exhaust manifolds and the stock air cleaner and the 2G carburetor made 229. So I think I remember that being the lowest. Guys, Minnesota Racing 1,000 horsepower turbo 4-stroke wheels. Yeah, that's not the turbo for a Predator motor. An Aussie Ford 250 2-valve 6-cylinder. I think we have a 250 that was here too. I think I have a video up on one of the turbo ones that they had problems with running at West Tech. The 305 that I ran actually did well. The TunePort 305 made like 260. So it wasn't low. Maybe an early carbureted one would be like that, but the TunePort motor made about what a 5-liter HO makes. .305 TunePort. 305 TPI Chevy Carcraft. Finals base 305 Chevy, 267 horsepower and wow, 333 foot-pounds of torque. So the TunePort 305 representing. What was a pre-5-liter Fox V8? I've never run one of those. Like if you ran, Aaron, if you ran one of the 157 horsepower 2-barrel, I think that was pre-Boss 302 when they started calling it that, when they were saying that the Boss is back. But before they went to, I think it was still a 4-speed, and it might have even been a single exhaust or something. But when they first started it, it was rated, I think, 157. And that would almost certainly make less than 200, I would think. About a year ago, I asked if a GT28 would be good for a 2.5, so I ran with it, but it's time for a 4-valve head and a GT35 for sure. The nice thing about the 2.5 is you can actually run more turbo, I think, than a, well, not I think, you can, than a 2.2. It's got a long stroke. It makes a lot of torque, and it does well. So that thing should be pretty responsive, I would think. Oh, Racer D, the trophy 4-cylinder head casting is 568177. See, look at that. I can't find any information on that head. Yeah, I'm curious to see. I obviously want to do a head upgrade on it. And if I put a later head on it, like one of these 400 heads, a small chamber deal. And that's the thing. I don't know if I should put, I have a set of small valve heads also, but I need to look and see. You'd need a piston in it that has a different valve relief. So if I was going to build it and put pistons in it, I think I would put pistons in it with valve reliefs for later heads. Does a Racer, does it look like it's all there? Is the carburetor there and all that stuff? Pontiac, I would like to try the Speedmaster head. So do they have Pontiac heads? I think that they did, right? I think I probably could get a set of those. I need to, I'll look those up when I get off. Oh, a 63 Fairlane with a 221. That would be low on the power output. Pontiac, they have a round port 72cc offering. Yeah, Casey just wanted the heads. I actually want to put Edelbrock heads on the 400 that I'm doing, and possibly the 350. You know, some good head brands for Windsor Motors, AFR, Trickflow, Dart, Edelbrock. There's actually lots of good heads for those. Take a look at the video that I have up on all the cylinder heads. Buick V8 was 215 cubic inches. Pistol, who do you watch on YouTube? I normally don't sit and watch YouTube other than I search to find specific things. Like I like the crazy Russian guys. I think that's pretty cool. And I only came across that because it was recommended to me while I was going down the rabbit hole in something else. Like if I want to find out about the Trophy 4-cylinder, I go and stay up late at night, and when I'm not doing other things, stay up late at night and try to find out as much information as I can on that. Or the L28 turbo, just trying to find dyno information of where somebody actually ran a test and showed the engine and showed the turbo and talked about it and talked about the dyno results. It's so frustrating. People say you need the right valve relief, but the bathtub chamber is pretty deep on a Pontiac. Well, that'd be interesting. I've never measured piston to valve clearance on it, so it would be, if I push it in there and it goes forever, then I'm just not going to worry about it. I have seen the lawnmower carburetor. I don't have any plans for a flathead. Actually, Mark Sanchez has a flathead in his room, and but I don't know that we would be able to run it on the dyno. Overbuilt. Neither one of the motors are mine yet. I'm going to buy them from Oliver, who won the Nova. But he has an L28 ET as a turbo, a ZX turbo, and an L28 NA version. So we have both to run theoretically. Garage 54 is the one that I'm talking about, yeah. Thunderhead 289. So we have the opportunity on the L series to run a bunch of different stuff. There's a bunch of different intake manifolds and a bunch of different exhaust manifolds, and there are different camshafts because those two motors have different camshafts. You know, they have different compression. They just put the lawnmower carb dyno test. Yeah, I saw the thing appeared about the dyno test. Squad 51, Squad 51. See the man? You got to start an IV with Ringer's lactate. You watch emergency. You watch Squad 51 emergency right after you watch Adam 12. An L28 and E88 head would be good. Flow is the best. Found on the 260. Wow, that's weird because I took my 260 head off and put an L28 head on. Probably went the wrong way. I think I was only looking at valve size or something. Yes, Rampart. And Julie wasn't Julie the one that worked at Rampart? Oliver has a bunch of different L series heads there. Uh, 53817 set. Is it a 568? The 240Z is smaller chamber, right? Does it have more compression or something? One on 12, one on 12. See the man. Henry, you're late, but you're at, and I got to go. Okay, guys, thank you all for showing up. And thank you, Racer D, for picking that up. I will give you a call. It's probably late back where you are. I will give you a call tomorrow, and we can arrange to get that thing out here. I actually have questions about that Iron Duke because I want to run one. I just want to run one and then put a turbo on it and blow it up. But that was cool stuff, though. Casey, I have seen the Weber conversions, and actually Oliver had a bunch of Weber carburetors there because we were looking at them all. He doesn't have that adapter, but I could make something for, you know, they had a Holley, one for a Holley also. But what I'm going to make is the crown turbo kit that just attaches onto the stock 240 or 260 intake manifold. So that will be kind of cool. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will see you all tomorrow. Do, 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 do.